special guest, Mayor Stephen Benjamin from Columbia, South Carolina. The mayor serves as an advisor to the Biden-Harris team, and among other areas of expertise, he has co-chaired the Biden Small Business Council, where he's presented the campaign's business agenda to business leaders alongside former Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker. Mr. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you, Scott. You're the only person who calls me Stephen other than my mom. So Steve is fine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I apologize for that. I do not want to get crosswise with her or with you.
It's all good.
Well, hey, before we get into some of the hard stuff, would love to hear a little bit more about you, what brought you to the mayor's office, and what brought you to Team Biden.
Oh, wow. Well, I will tell you, I'm, those of you, man, I'm the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. I've been volunteering with the Biden campaign, and now obviously sharing my thoughts with folks on the transition team, primarily supporting the ideas about local government. I'm the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, have been for just over 10 years. It's been a wonderful journey over this course of this quarter or so of my life. I've had the pleasure of serving as president of the U.S. Council of Mayors, president of the African American Mayors Association, a co-chair of Municipal Bonds for America, the primary advocacy group that protects the tax exemption of muni bonds that helps us build the vast majority of American infrastructure. And I also serve as vice chair of the Global Parliament of Mayors. My 13-year-old says, "What next, Dad? The galaxy?" I don't know, but local government and the role that local government plays in sustaining the American economy, indeed the local economy, is something that's been my life's work for the last decade or so. So I've spent a lot of time. Many of you may know that 85% of our population now lives in cities and metropolitan areas. 89% of the jobs in those areas, and in pre-pandemic, 92% of America's GDP created in cities and metropolitan areas that have found maybe a new place in advocating on this theory of localism in these metro areas, helping drive the economy, supported by obviously fantastic companies like Lockton. So we've been policymaking on the local level and trying to find ways to scale those ideas up, the very best ideas, and see if we can help them become federal policy as well. So I had the wonderful opportunity to work with Senator Biden and certainly with Vice President Biden, who is very well versed and steeped in our issues as cities, and now including with the wonderful appointment. I spoke to Secretary Designate Buttigieg yesterday as he takes his new role at transportation. We're trying to find every single way we can to have local policymakers who just have to get things done. No D, no R, no independent, just get things done. Find more and more of us trying to make an imprint on the federal policy.
Well, excellent. And, obviously, South Carolina played a pivotal role in launching Joe Biden toward the presidency during the primaries. And I know, you played a significant role in that process. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to work with the president-elect and with Vice President-elect Harris?
Sure. The fact that South Carolina is the first in the South primary on both sides of the aisle, I must say, means that we've had an outsized role in determining both the Republican nominee and the Democratic nominee. Certainly over the last few cycles, we've really just gotten that place on the Democratic side of the aisle over the last two cycles. Almost all of it due to my friend and a mentor, Jim Clyburn. The majority whip is understood that the South had something to say and wanted to make sure we had a prominent role post Iowa and New Hampshire. We finally got a chance for South Carolina and Nevada to bring more diversity into that process. And I will tell you that moderates tend to do well, across the South. So often in the political discourse that we engage in nowadays. The loudest voices tend to be on the far left and the far right. Most people in America, we believe, tend to hover around center, left of center, right of center. And we believe that the candidate that emerged from here in South Carolina would fit that profile. Early on, I was actually a Mike Bloomberg guy. So I was co-chair. I was co-chair of Mike Bloomberg's presidential campaign. Always thought well of President Biden and others, but my focus was honestly in just making sure that a moderate who understood business and would create an environment for us to grow together. It was so central to what we needed in this country. So immediately after Super Tuesday, after a strong win here in South Carolina with Congressman Clyburn's endorsement, we coalesced, pulled about 50 mayors or so, and endorsed the Vice President Biden, and just worked our tails off in the most unique election year ever. I think we're all zoomed out, but it turned into I think a winning strategy. And just again, America needs a whole lot more of. And as I mentioned to you, Scott, I wanted to make sure with the footprint that Lockton has, really impress upon all of your employees and partners and business associates and your customers. You have an outsized role now on how we come up with thoughtful policy, not just in the federal level, but state level and local level. Continue to engage on the local level to help people understand that two people equally yoked can see the same issue, see it very differently. But when we thrive when we come up with thoughtful, pragmatic solutions to problems that you create an environment where private sector capital can land, and you can have public sector policy in place that helps it grow. And we all grow together as we emerge from this incredible, these economic challenges that have been caused by the greatest public health threat that we've seen in over a century. We're expecting a K-shaped recovery. So some folks are going to do really well and some are going to do very poorly. And it's going to require us to have some very thoughtful solutions. So I want to impress upon those of you who actually have signed the front of a paycheck, who know how to read a P&L, who understand business and how to pass policies that actually help businesses grow. I would encourage you to make sure you continue your work through Lockton, but also in your individual capacities to help us pass a good policy at every level. I do know from dialogue with the Biden-Harris team, the policymakers, ears are wide open. Everyone's thinking about ways in which we can move forward together. Obviously, the acknowledgement by Senator McConnell yesterday, the open acknowledgement, I think underscores the fact that Senator McConnell, Speaker Pelosi, and Vice President Biden, President-elect Biden, have all worked together well and productively for decades. And hopefully we're going to emerge into a year where we can start seeing some of these really seismic challenges all attacked in problem-solving ways, starting early next year.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point about engagement in local politics, local issues. There's so much focus certainly on Washington, D.C. and what's going on there. But when the rubber hits the road, a lot of stuff comes down to local issues. And, I know for President-elect Biden, economic recovery is identified as one of his four major priorities going into 2021. You've spent a lot of time chairing his small business advisory and sharing his vision for economic recovery, especially around small businesses, with many folks. Can you give us a little bit of insight into the pitch you've been making and where you see the Biden-Harris team moving forward after inauguration?
Sure. Well, I know that he hopes to stabilize the economy. So we're looking at an economic crisis for so many that, again, was precipitated by a healthcare crisis. And we're finally at a point where many of us can see the light at the end of the tunnel, with the vaccines being approved and now actually being administered. That's having a stabilizing effect on the market, but we're gonna be able to have to traverse some difficult terrain these next several weeks as we watch cases climb and also some of the comorbidities taking more lives. I think we'll watch the market continue to prosper and then to stabilize. But his Build Back Better plan does call for significant partnerships. I mean, obviously, the one good and stabilizing factor is the fact that the man who helped construct the Affordable Care Act is now going to be replacing President Trump, and as opposed to ACA, although there's always an opportunity for someone to challenge it, we won't have a constant assault on the ACA. We'll be able at least to understand the framework that we're all focused on. But I know COVID response and recovery, significant focus on climate, and obviously the impact it has on your industry, rejoining Paris and the Paris Accords on day one, and investing heavily in industries that allow us to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. I'm sure will impact your industry as well, and then just trying to find some type of a thoughtful, yes, progressive, but also pragmatic response to how we engage with some of the more liberal leaders in the party, that also obviously allows us to continue to problem solve with those who may be right of the president as well. We've watched, someone recently commented that COVID has served almost as an X-ray of the American body, and showed us how many broken bones that we have, and illuminated them in some incredibly meaningful ways. That's somewhat laid out a roadmap for the issues that the president, as he focuses on equity and building healthcare plans that work for tens of millions of Americans who remain uncovered. I know those are all priorities for him, but I love to underscore the fact again that I don't know which TV channels we all watch, but the reality is that we all suffer from some degree of experiential bias. I would encourage you to take comfort in the fact that the moderates won this election, and that regardless of what you might hear on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or some of the newer channels that matter, that you're finding people who are very pragmatic and who are problem solvers being led by President Biden and Vice President Harris, who really want to come to the table. And it's being reflected. I mean, some of the spending some time with one of the CEOs of one of our trade associations in DC last night, and we're all trying to kind of get arms around, even some of the cabinet picks. But I think there's at least a recurring theme that you get some problem solvers there, and the vast majority of them tend to be moderates and centrists, recognizing that you can get a list of 10 problems, and 6 or 7 of them we all recognize are problems. We have to figure out how to solve them, and the rest, we might not be able to ever get consensus. But then we resort to good old American democracy and the greatest democratic nation in the history of the world. 50% plus one. We got to figure it out. That's the way that my relationship with the president-elect has always been. He wants to solve a problem. He's a good and decent man who wants to focus on not only pragmatic solutions, but he focuses on the humanity of the individual in the process.
And as you engaged with businesses in your community, with other mayors, with folks around the country, what are some of the major economic issues you see them facing, and what have you been talking with the Biden team about with respect to coming up with some of those practical, more moderate solutions?
Sure. Obviously the conversation has changed over the last year. I mean, my background, I'm a public finance attorney. I was the city's bond counsel. I was never elected in office. I served as a cabinet secretary for a former governor, but I was chair elected to the Chamber of Commerce and served on 2 corporate boards before I became mayor. And much to my wife's chagrin, decided to take an oath of poverty for the last 10 years or so to serve the people. What we brought here and what we've tried to through leadership of the Conference of Mayors and constant engagement with the Trump administration, as well as the Obama-Biden administration, and what we'll continue to do going forward, is as we focus on problem solving. We got into office 10 years ago, 11 years ago. We finished 8 of the last 11 years with a budget surplus. We've never raised taxes. We worked to create an environment. We've actually cut taxes by 12 mills. We work, again, to create an environment where private sector capital feels welcome, you treat it well, it grows. We've invested in infrastructure. And that was the conversation with Secretary Designate Buttigieg was about last night. We spent $750 million in water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure, recognizing that America has at least, depending on who you talk to, a $2 trillion deficit in infrastructure spending. Every $1 billion you spend creates 15,000 construction jobs. So the opportunity to help build back better by investing in smart infrastructure investments, especially now with the cost of capital being so low. So we continue to lever up the fact that state and local governments either pay for and or maintain 75% of America's infrastructure. We cannot do anything that disrupts that, while also continuing to look at some really thoughtful public-private partnerships that might allow us to bring more institutional capital into that space. Again, people looking to invest with patient capital that might allow us to do a number of different things at once. The issue of fiscal stewardship, obviously, just for the points I just raised, are very important to us. We just last week received our 6th in a row Government Finance Officers Association Award of Excellence in Financial Reporting. And that comes after not only presenting clean CAFRs every single year, but also taking a very intentional approach to reducing our pension liabilities coming into our state system, significantly reducing almost $100 million our non-pension related, our OPEB liabilities as well. Again, just constantly showing the type of stewardship that you need to survive times like these. The challenge that we're facing now is that with the greatest pandemic that we've seen since 1918, the greatest economic disruption we've seen certainly in an election year since 1932, and the greatest social unrest around systemic issues around race since 1968, we were able to deal with those major challenges that span several decades. We've never had to deal with them on the local level all in one year. We're living dog years right now. And the ways that those 3 challenges have affected local coffers is one issue that many of you who follow DC news more often than you care to understand that that the local governments are going to see hundreds of billions of dollars of shortfall over the next several years, which to those of us who might be more fiscally conservative, we're like, okay, we'll do more with less. The reality is that, you're still going to have cops on the street. You still got to have firefighters ready to respond to that 4-alarm fire. You still got to fill the potholes and pick up the trash in a way that continues to allow us to grow and prosper, watch property values rise, and obviously support each and every one of our businesses. So just having a seat at the table that allows us to influence policy in a way that inures to the benefit of the entire body politic is just so important right now. And we've kept the heat up on both sides of the aisle. My federal delegation's tired of hearing from me, but it's my job to stay and engage with them. And I don't envy them right now. That the challenges are significant, but we've got to find some way to continue to build an American economy that's much more resilient, much more responsible, much more transparent, and much more equitable. And I believe that we can do it in a way that works for all of us.
Oh yeah, and I think the what I'm hearing from you is similar to what we heard on the campaign trail with President-elect Biden. Is there's a significant role for business in that process, right? There's a significant role for business in infrastructure. It's not just government spending and government doing all the work. But you also mentioned, all these things coming at us all at once. And I think, one of the major priorities for the Biden team is certainly getting the public health crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, under control. One of the issues there is the vaccine. We've got the vaccines coming out. We talk to businesses all the time about, hey, how do I get to the front of the line? How are these decisions being made for prioritization? I imagine that was probably never something you thought would be on your desk in this job, but those are things that you've had to deal with. So as you've dealt with it, as you've talked with other mayors, what's the thought process in figuring out the distribution for the vaccine, and what's your message to employers as they seek to get their employees vaccinated?
No, absolutely. I think we should all be aggressive and all be patient. I mean, we're seeing rising poll numbers, confidence in the vaccine. I've seen some of the actually had a chance to speak to Dr. Fauci 2 weeks ago on the fact that if we actually do get over 70% of us vaccinated, we can achieve the type of herd immunity that allows us to truly corral this thing. We've watched some of the poll numbers and confidence in the vaccine continue to rise. I have a call actually with our state epidemiologist tomorrow, who chairs our vaccine task force here in South Carolina. And I think the logistics challenge and obviously the supply challenges are something we'll have to work through, but the prioritization, looking at those who or frontline healthcare workers and those who work in the space who may not be healthcare workers, but including janitors who work in hospitals, and certainly those of us who share the comorbidities that make us least likely to survive a potential infection, prioritization of nursing homes and other elder care facilities. I think as you work your way down the pecking order in terms of who needs it now and who needs it most, we can get to a point where by third quarter, fourth quarter of next year, we can all have received our 2 doses. I mean, so I would encourage folks not to be overly concerned about it. I would say that as I pressed my city council last night to not take our foot off the gas of the very basic things that matter most. We've got to wear masks, guys. We got to continue our masking policies as very best as we can. Let's continue to physically distance. It makes a difference. We've leveraged technology as much as we possibly can. Let's keep doing that just for another several months. And obviously the very basic rules around sanitizing as well. But we finally got some light at the end of the tunnel. It's not a freight train. Okay, so we know that there's an opportunity ahead of us, but it's going to require the discipline to get there. But I'm excited. More and more scientists and public health professionals I speak to with the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, that science has done and scientists have done, we're expected to do. Let's continue to put aside the politics. There's no red way or blue way to solve this thing. Let's go red, white, and blue. And for those of our friends who are international, whatever the colors of your flag are. But let's follow public health. Good data. Data gives you intelligence. Intelligence allows you to make sound policy and thoughtful people. And that's why I love sitting around the table at BGR. You got people who are Republicans, who are Democrats, who are independents, who just know how to solve problems. And, let's figure out how we can put real solutions on the table. If we do that, then we can continue to be guided by our one true north, which I believe is the preservation of human life. And we do it right, and we'll make sure that the holidays, this holidays and next year, will be robust and fun for more families across this country.
Do you think we'll see a difference between the way that President-elect Biden addresses public health with respect to COVID-19 versus what we've seen from the Trump administration?
Yes, I will. I do, and I've had the opportunity several times. The Trump White House has given me an open door over the last several years. We primarily focused on infrastructure issues and opportunity zones. So they've been very gracious. I wish that we were able to get more policy working done, but just the tone and tenor in Washington can be incredibly difficult at times. My hope and prayer is that we recognize, first of all, the executive branch is only the executive branch. So the things that the president has the authority over will get done. There's a very narrow majority of Democrats in the House, and based on what happens in Georgia, it will be a very narrow majority of Republicans or Democrats in the Senate. In the worlds in which we live, that normally means there's a whole lot of compromise going on, and folks want to get things done. That has not been the case in DC lately. So I think it's going to be up to us again as business leaders and policymakers outside the Beltway to continue to push folks towards solving problems. So, but I think there's a great degree of intentionality in the Biden White House that wants to try and address some of these issues that actually stand as existential threats. I mean, whether it's COVID or climate or war and peace, these are real issues that have to be addressed. And you got a policymaker who now is president of the United States who spent literally the entirety of his professional life as a civil servant serving this country, feels deeply in the greatness of America. Some people don't like the term American exceptionalism. I believe in it, and I do believe that this country is still, even in challenging times, the world's greatest and best hope. The good things that the president believes in, and it's going to be up to all of us to make him and Vice President Harris exceptionally good at what they do, because we're constantly feeding good ideas, constantly feeding good energy, and sharing good policy. So I'm not sure. I think we're probably running up on our time. I will probably wrap up where I started, and really encourage all of your incredible business leaders who make up the Lockton family, get involved. Obviously you have folks like us who can help carry the message through you, Scott, and through BGR, but in your local level, you'd be amazed whatever your city happens to be, your city, and your mayor sits at the center of if it's Atlanta at half a $500 billion GDP, and the MSA helping drive real issues that I can be really good and scaled up all across the country. Or you might be in another city and it's a really bad idea that catches on, and other policymakers then try to replicate it in other parts of the country or the world. So having a voice really matters. So I want to encourage you to do so and use your wealth of experience to help us, continue to build this country.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much for joining us, and certainly appreciate ending on both a hopeful and encouraging message to all of us, and looking toward the future of our great country. We appreciate you taking the time and look forward to talking with you and engaging with you more. Put in a good word for us with the Biden administration. We hope.
Let's stay in close touch. Absolutely.
Excellent. And please.
I was just gonna say Godspeed, and just thank you guys for the opportunity to dialogue. Hopefully we can maintain a dialogue that helps us help you continue to grow and grow jobs.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with another episode in January. For now, happy holidays and stay safe. Thank you.